guys, it's another podcast with the Cockney Buddha. It's all about getting real on this one. I just wanted to do a podcast wrapped around therapy and dedicated to my therapist Judith and about the journey. This one's about not giving up on yourselves, guys. Keep looking, it's out there. The journey is I gave on therapy for many years, and you'll get to hear. But it's also how things have changed around for me because of it. So get yourself a nice cup of tea, cup of coffee, or whatever drink you fancy. Turn up that volume, guys. This is all about getting real and being vulnerable too. So like I said, I want this wrapped around really therapy in general. Those that know me know that's what I do. I'm a counsellor, but I do things a little bit in a different way, and I've been told that from people that have had therapy before, and it's the whole reason why I do it the way I do it. But the one I have to thank for that is my therapist Judith. And it's crazy how we met. It took me going to a really bad place to what I called going dark, but it wasn't until I knew it was a total different place for me. It was an area that it's hard to explain, but those that I've had sit in front of me and those that I've made contact with, when they start to talk about their experience and then I bring in my experience, it kind of validates that, no, I was in that. I say going dark because I don't like using that word suicide. It's a horror, to me it just makes me shiver a little bit more. But it's how it took me going there to meet Judith, because my story goes back a ways, and I can remember the first time I even kind of what I believe now was anxiety when I was about 5 years old, and I was having separation anxiety, I believe, and I was going absolutely crazy because I didn't want to go into school. But then as I started noticing there was something, there was no knowing what it was, and you didn't go and see anybody about it. You just got on with it, and it got to a point where I started getting into chefing, and I was going through chefing school, and I was having heavy bouts of anxiety through chefing school, especially when we had to take part in being a kitchen brigade where they put you in charge and there's a head chef, which is a student, and you're cooking for a restaurant that's actually on the university property. Catering school property. And yeah, I knew it was pretty bad, and cutting a long story short on that bit, I ended up seeing somebody, didn't really know what it was about, didn't get told it was anxiety, no idea. Even took a pill and I didn't even know what it was. And in the end, I was like, I'm kind of done with this, and I didn't do anything about it until I moved to the US. again, bit of a journey, but I'm not going to go through all of it. And got into a job at a country club and started going a little bit wonky, and then that's when we got our answer, because I started having, all of a sudden I'm having like panic attacks, and my wife got on the phone early morning. It was like 3 a.m. Got on the phone, and that's when they said, yeah, he's got anxiety, and it was like, oh shit, now we know what it is. So anyway, a whole story to that. And then I started going through a whole bunch of different therapists here. I've got many stories about them. Some, I remember one just sitting there and just looking at me, really, and me kind of sitting there wondering, especially when you have a problem, well, I did then, with like the very quietness of it all. It used to be. Now in therapy and that, when you're doing that, and there's those quiet times, there's actually a reason for it, and it's very beneficial, because it allows the mind to think, and it allows the mind to process. So, but shit. And I've had many. I had another guy. He drew a line, and he's telling me, this is the way you want to be on this line. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, you're up here, and he puts a line above that line. I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, you need to get you down here, and he put a line down below the middle line. And he's like, because when you come up and you get a bit anxious, then you just go to the middle line. I'm thinking, what on earth is going on here? What is going on? And I went through many different, I kicked off in one office with my anger. That's when it started noticing anger kicking in and the rage kicking in and shit. And I had one, she got up and she went out and grabbed my wife to come in and calm me down. And I remember looking at her, and she's like, oh, wow. She goes, you're like Jekyll and Hyde. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, you just completely shifted. And I'm like, but you're, you're the therapist. But no, anyway, and then it got to the point where I just gave up on it all. I was on medications and stuff as well, and I just gave up. I gave up on all the medications because none of it was working. In fact, the side effects were just ludicrous. And I'm so dead against it, but I know I shouldn't say get against it, because it's used for a purpose. But when people are being fed like guinea pigs, I've done so many, I've done cocktails of stuff, and it got to the point where it was just deading me out, and there was no answers to the, what did I know about the mind? I thought you could just take control of it, and again, listen guys, I'm not against it. It's just, I think the system, just feeds into it, really, and it's really upsetting when I get people in front of me and they know that they're addicted to stuff. And one girl, we got her down. She's like, I want to give it up. I'm like, all right, well, you got to go through your doctor, because I'm not a doctor by any words and means. And I told her what I actually did to cut down off it, even though I had one psychiatrist getting mad at me because I was going in there once a month, and then he'd be like, so how you feeling? I'm not really feeling any different, just a bit like, deader, but I don't feel really any different. My anxieties and everything's still there. And then I'd go back to him and tell him the same thing, and he got mad. He got mad at me, and he goes, well, just come off him then. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm thinking, I don't think you're meant to do that. But what did I know? I was sitting there in front of a doctor, and I'm like, just stop him then? He's like, yeah, just stop him, just come off him. Holy shit. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. It, I don't know what it, well, I obviously do now, but if I was to speak to someone that's come down off of some heavy some heavy substances. I can only think that I kind of went through a bit of that because holy shit, sweating, rolling around on the bed, frigging like my world was coming to an end. It was horrible, and it started on the drive home. I even had my mum over here on holiday and shit. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not against it at all. But when I've been put in front of that kind of shall I call it behaviour from a professional, it doesn't really rate my own personal experiences. I'm talking about. It doesn't rate in my favour for me. But anyway, I came off of everything. And then there came a point where I went years and years and years, and I was just not really coping at all. There wasn't, I was definitely afraid of the phone. My wife was doing all the phone calls, and I'd sweat when the phone rang. So I wasn't really coping with anything, and I knew the anxiety was there because I was a person that I'm not now, and then it just got to the point where it got really bad one night, and like I say, that darkness, what I call darkness, kind of came in, and I didn't realise actually that it was the other, I don't want to say it again, but so that's when Judith came in on the scene, because my wife says, I'm getting you help. And I'm like, no. I ain't going there again. Let's not do that, dear. But she's like, no. And when she's on one, she's on one. That's what I never worry really health-wise when I got my wife around, because if there was really anything kind of going a bit loopy, she'd be like, right, on it. And I wouldn't have a choice. But yeah, I went really. So my wife is on the hunt looking for a therapist. Then she kept on calling me in the office and saying, what about this one? No. What about this one? No. And she's just showing me profile after profile, and she was starting to get annoyed. And I know it because I just kept on seeing the same of what I've been through, and it was like I didn't want to do it in the first place. Thank you very much. And because I'd lost all hope, because I'd been through so many negative experiences, I'd lost hope. In really, I mean, I did. Trust, forget about it. Trust it? No, man, no. I lost all trust in it. I'd been through so many different experiences with it, with others in the past, that I had no. So every time a profile come up, I just saw this. I was just seeing the same, and I'm like, no. And then all of a sudden, I get the call in, and I'm like, here we go again. And I walk into the room, and my wife has got a website up on her computer, and she goes, "What about this one?" And I look, and there's Judith standing in her garden with this floppy hat on, and I look and I thought, that's different. And I start having a little bit of a better look, a little bit of a butcher's, and I'm like, okay, what's with this one? So my wife brings up the bio, and I start reading about the arts and hypnotherapy and energy, and I'm thinking, this is a complete hippie. Brilliant. let me, and I'm being dead serious. Yeah, that's different. I don't know about that. So, because I'd even been through, holy shit, we paid, I can't remember how many thousand for me to go and have this like biofeedback thing where they hook these things on your head, and you stare at this computer screen, and you have to bring these. I've been through acupuncture, even though acupuncture I completely believe in, but in the environment that I'm in now, I wasn't coping with shit back then. Did it relax me, acupuncture? Yeah, but without dealing with your mind, now it would be like really beneficial. In fact, I even thought about it the other day, because it's it'd be something to bring into my journey, so to speak. So straight away, my wife's on the blower, right, and booking an appointment. And she goes, I'm coming with you, because I don't think she trusted me going on my own and just drive straight past. Bye. Right. So we turn up. We pull up outside. I'm already like looking at the gaff, yeah, and the mailbox is like different colours. The garden is like, you know those gardens you look in, and first of all, if you look at it, you're like, that's weird. It's like a lot of different things. All you can't really. But and then when you stand and actually look, you're like, oh shit, there's like that there and that there, and freaking, it's like shit's got a purpose here, right? And then so we're standing in the front, and then out comes Judith out the gate, and well, I'm like, oh, what? Because she's she's from New York. She's a beautiful Jewish lady, and she comes walking out, and she's very softly spoken, and I'm thinking, oh boy. But that's where the journey began. Right there. Without even knowing it. I wanted nothing to do with therapy again. I was done with it. And who knew that right there, that meeting right there would grow into where I am right now on a podcast, vlogging, doing the work that I do. It's crazy how these journeys start. You don't expect something like that to turn into this. She said one time that I was the worst case of anxiety and depression she's seen. And Judith's seen every. She even says to me, you're gonna think you've heard it all, and you still haven't heard it all, right? And I believe that with the work that I do. I never take one the same as the other, because they're not. There's complete differences in people. There may be patterns to things, but there's so many different nuances on how people get there, and right. So here I come along, and I'm like, I'm all heavy metaled out. I got I've probably had a Scully t-shirt on, and I'm all in like black. I used to wear these black ankle boots. It was all about metal. It was, it was all like, and there's Judith, and here I am. I'm like frickin' Jack the Giant Killer. But she has saved my ass more than once. That wasn't the only time that I'd gone that way. I've had Judith. I've walked. I remember going to Judith's one day. I'd been in the therapy for a while at this point with her, and her office. This was way before COVID. But the way her office was set up, you went in this one door. It had like a double door. One door goes into like the kitchen area, and there's like a really cool room where we've done yoga and that in there. And then there's the other side of it where you go in, and that's where it looked like a little library kind of. It had a really nice vibe, hippie vibe in there. And there was normally, a candle burning and more incense or something, and the cat would turn up. It was just a freaking awesome vibe. And so I turned up. I nearly didn't. I nearly drove past. I was on the highway, and I nearly just pegged right past the turning. I thought, I just don't know. And I didn't know where I wanted to go. I was in one of those minds. I was just like, I'm just going to keep driving. I don't even know where I was going or which way I was heading or anything. But something told me to get off. And I turned off, and I ended up and I could feel myself getting worse. And I pulled up outside of Judith, and then all of a sudden, I've told her this too, whenever I step foot in onto Judith's property, I always get this calming feeling, because that's all you can feel there. It's just the garden and everything is very meditative. There's this beautiful oak tree, and I used to sit out in the garden and watch the squirrels run around and play up and down this oak tree, with this cool bench, and I'd sit out there, waiting for her to get done with her client, and then I met a lot of people that way too, because I'd get introduced to these people, and I don't know them, and I've met many, many interesting people through Judith. I mean, just really, some of them have turned into friends. We keep in contact. It's turned into a whole journey. So that day, there was a divider. So I went in on the left-hand side, not the kitchen side. Judith was in the kitchen, because whenever she knew I was turning up, she always knew I wanted a cuppa. So she'd be in the kitchen knocking out tea. And I was, at this point, when I got there, it was this, like, I was just low as low. And I knew I was on that again, that feeling. And I walk into the office door, and I heard her call out, and I don't even know what I said. And then all of a sudden she come, but there was a curtain that divided it, like the door. It was like the doorway, the curtain. And she pulled the curtain back. She looked around. She looked at me as I just come inside the doorway, and she went, "Oh no," and just knew what to do. Knew what to do. And you don't get that good when just knowing, without having a heart and putting your heart where whoever's sitting in front of you, feeling what they're feeling. And yet they tell you when you become a degreed, which I'm not. I have a certification, but I'm not degreed. But when and I've been told this too, with energy work that I do. I went to class over a week. It was over a weekend that I did it, and to do energy healing. And there was a young girl in there that was going through for a psychology degree, and I just got talking to her, and I'm like, why wasn't anything ever working? She goes, because they do everything by the book. And I remember Judith saying, I don't go by the book. So it made sense then, now. Back then, what did I know? Right? And I'm like, oh. So she goes, yeah, there's certain protocols you got to follow, and you can't have emotion. I'm thinking, what? How? I got choked up today. And I told the guy as well, because it was a really touching moment of a massive step forward. And I can't help but feel that. It's a moment that I can't, there is no explaining how much that is worth. Because when you work with these people, these beautiful human beings, and they're in spots that they're in, and you work to help them find a way within their own mind and figuring those things out, and then all of a sudden those steps are made, it's like massive. And it choked me up. I couldn't, but you're not meant to do that. You're not meant to say anything about your own experiences either. And I can't understand it, because do you know how many times I've been able to communicate something with somebody by going, hang on, let me give you an example, and using myself in my own situations to be able to explain something to somebody so they get it. But you're not meant to do that. So when I saw I started seeing Judith, and then she pulled me. It was all Judith's thing about the energy work and everything. She showed me, and all of a sudden I was hooked. I'm like, all right, what's all that about? And now I've had some absolutely crazy experiences with it. I mean, no explanation. There's no. When you take someone like me, I was just this crazy metal beer drinker, right? Give me the meat, right? Now I'm full on plant based. I don't drink. I haven't drank for a few years now, and you can do those. You can do those changes. You can do those changes. So that's what Judith did for me. She started me on this journey, showing me the energy, and then was, after some therapy and that, and then the hypnosis. That's a whole crazy ball game right there. If you've never been hypnotized, I'd recommend having a go, because it's crazy. I've had some experiences with that, which is mad. I've done past life stuff. I've not done one with Judith yet. I know she can do it, and I wanna hit her up for that. I'll probably have to go over to the office to have that one done, but I've done some meditations with it, and it's absolutely. It's just like I can still see it now. I can bring the shit to mind like it was yesterday, and clear as a bell. Madness. And Judith, as she was teaching me and showing me, and then I started getting involved, she was like, hey, do you want to help me out with somebody with the client's permission, doing some energy work? I'm like, yeah. And I just, I was like, yeah, all right. And I started getting into some of the energy work and that. And then I started getting involved, like right in the beginning, again, all with the client's permission, to just sit in on the first few minutes or first 15 minutes or so before we got into the energy work. And then I was getting asked my opinions and shit. And I'm like, what? But then I started realising I was kind of connecting with these people. And then Judith pulled me aside afterwards. She's going, hang on a minute, you got something here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, you're starting to show a little bit of a talent for this. And I'm like, what did I know? I do what I'm doing now. Never thought I'd be here. No chance. It wasn't until an intern let Judith down, and there were clients there, and I went in on a session this one day on my own session, and Judith says, "Can you step up?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? I remember it like yesterday. I'm looking at her with this bit of a glaze, like, what? Can you step up? And I'm like, what are you talking? And I remember turning around and pointing at the wall, which is like a wallpaper full of degrees and freaking goodness knows what else up there, right? And I'm like, I ain't got that. And I remember she was taking notes, and she looked up and she looked at all stuff, what she's earned on the wall, and she goes, oh, that? And I went, yeah, that. And she says, it's just paper. And she just went back to writing. And I thought, what? This ain't that. This can't be happening. So then she's saying, she gets done writing up, and she goes, so? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then she starts explaining how, what I'm showing and what I, and she's interested, and I'm like, all right. And that was the start. And there's a whole, I'm not going to keep going on because it's, there's a whole story there with that, but that started my journey. And then, of course, as I've gotten onto my own journey now, and I've been, I'm doing the work. I really love my work, but it took me, thinking I really, really love chefing, but I did. And when I lost my career in chefing, which was down to anxiety, I was absolutely devastated. It was like someone freaking, like, I don't know, it was like because it was everything. I was so engrossed in it, just like I am with this. so engrossed with it, it just became a huge part of like who I was. It was like part of your identity somehow. Because it's like until you talk to someone that's been in that kind of position, it's hard to understand, because it's a crazy world, chefing, and I ended up, I loved it, but my anxiety was so bad I ended up having to give a career up. And then I went through, I started cutting grasses, and I was even having bad anxiety with that. I grew it for a bit, and then it started dwindling down, and I wasn't replacing it. And I think I was kind of done with it, being out in the heat all the time. So I started going into doing, got in with somebody who's one of my really, really fucking killer mates' brother, Tim. I got in with him. He started, training me in pest control and that, which is really hard to get into down here, by the way, guys. You've got to know somebody that was willing to do it, and he did. And then I went through state exams and all that, but I didn't grow the business. It could have been like really good, but even my therapist said, she goes, yeah, but that wasn't your path. That's not what you was meant to do. And this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. Even when you're in a position, I've had guys come in front of me, give them a few good sessions, and a lot of them, I've seen the patterns where they like, I don't like where I'm working. All right, which way do you want to go? Well, I want to look for, all right, let's go. and before you know it, they're off, and they're finding their own feet, because it's stepping out into those scary areas. So anyway, she's got me started on all this journey, and then of course you meet a load of great people as well. I met a group that I'm in now, with 30-year-old Grom. Go and check him out. He's on YouTube. He has his own YouTube channel, straight up fella. And I met him by just looking for positive stuff, and then he popped up. And he lives over in England, and I commented one day, boom, all of a sudden, there's a group, and pulled me in because he goes, I'm starting a group that with a bunch of people that inspire me. And I was like really taken back by that. But that's another part of this journey. That's another step. Right up until now, I've met someone called Jo Beth. Go and check her out. She's got a great podcast out there. She interviews the last interview that I listened to was a really cool podcast. Go and check her out. She's on Instagram too, and she's the most recent in this journey. And then you just start expanding, because it's the energy. It will start moving, and it's all down to Judith. It really is, because she won't take credit for it. She never does. But and I keep telling her to make a freaking awesome book. It really would make an awesome book, because it's some of the stuff we've done together as well. It's crazy, especially in energy work and things we found and things we've come across, and you wouldn't believe it. And there's no question. I've had people spin around and say, "Did you touch me?" And I'm like, 2 foot away. So explain that, right? But it's all down to Judith, being under Judith's wing, and I'm so grateful, so much gratitude. I have so much gratitude that I'm able to go and see her, because there's many people that can't. That's why when I do what I do, I work on keeping I've got a sliding scale, so I keep, I even got told, no, you're reasonable. So, that tells me I'm on the right track there, because I don't want it to where you're just freaking, what's the point? People need the help, and right? So, anyway, yeah, so, I do the work just like her. She works the same way. Obviously, that's where I've picked it up from. I remember her saying to somebody, "I do what I got to do to get the job done," and that's a motto that I take on too. Judith's my freaking mentor. She's my guru. She's my therapist. She's my work colleague. And there's no way it's not even last on my list. I always put it up on the first, but she's my friend, guys. Thanks, Judith. I really appreciate you. I really do. Much love to you. And much love to Wes too. Don't want to leave him out. Go and check out my YouTube channel, guys, if you would, please. Just look up the Cockney Bird, or I should pop up on there. And I'm doing a thing on Sunday at 3:30. I may do it every Sunday. I'm going to see what the feedback is first. But I'm doing one this Sunday, and I'm going to do a meditation live on YouTube. So if you could jump on my channel, give a subscribe and a like, and hit the notification bell, because I'm going to try and get the advert up over either tonight or tomorrow on YouTube. So go and show me some love, guys. Sunday, 3:30 Eastern Time, over here in the US. Down in the beautiful Florida down here. I'm so blessed, guys. Have a good evening.